everybody. Welcome to the Mechanicsburg Mystery Bookshop. We're having a Zoom event this afternoon, as you know, which is why you signed in. And I thank you all for joining. I'm just going to give you a little bit of housekeeping detail before I turn the program over to our fantastic moderator, Bob Walton. This event is being recorded and will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel, which is MECH Mystery Books. So it's Mechanicsburg abbreviated, MECH Mystery Books. For those who can't participate today. So if you couldn't join us, then that just made no sense because you're already here, right? But if you want to see it again, you can always go to our YouTube channel. If you do not wish to have your face as a part of the video, please turn your video off or place something over your camera on your computer. Please keep your mic muted for the duration of the event. And when the time comes for questions and answers, please type your questions in the chat box for the authors to review. And that's pretty much all the stuff you have to do. Just like I said, remember that if you don't want to end up on our YouTube, either cover up your camera on your computer or turn it off so that you're not showing. Without further ado, we're so excited. We have a couple of new authors with us today. So we're very excited about this. Bob Walton's been with us forever. And so he's not new to us. But our authors that are being interviewed today or questioned by Bob today are. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to our great moderator, author, Bob Walton.
Good enough. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Mae.
Yes.
Robert. Do you go by Robert?
I do.
Or JT?
Yeah, I go by JT Kunkel today, but I usually go by Robert. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, how you guys doing today? All right.
Very good.
All right. Good.
Great, thanks.
I thought now we're doing these two books here. It's the books I've kind of prepared for. I know this is the first in the series, right?
Yes.
And this is the third in the series. So just introduce yourselves, to start off with, and so we know. Oh, thank you. It tells a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your work history is, or your writing history is, and then we'll get into the books. So, Robert, why don't you start?
Okay. I'm Robert Pickford, writing as JT Kunkel, originally from upstate New York, the Albany area. I've been in Central PA for about 21 years. I work in finance, actually. I'm a chief financial officer for a behavioral health insurance company in Philadelphia, and have been working in managed care for about 30 years. So that's what I do career-wise. I've been writing not for that long, actually, since about 2015, and then took a couple of years to find an agent, which I finally did. Thankfully, my agent, Donna Pudick, and a publisher, Taylor and Seal, and finally got published in 2019. So I've been published for about almost 2 years now, and just recently had my 6th book in the series published.
Good. Good enough. Good for you. And Mae, how about you? You've been around for a while, Mae, writing.
Well, yeah, well, to start with, I'm Mae Clair. I was originally from Linglestown. I'm just outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania now. Been writing since grade school. Had my first novel published in 2012. I've been publishing consistently since then. Most of my work is through Kensington Publishing and Lyrical Underground, which is their one of their e-print offshoots. I write mainly mystery and suspense, mystery thrillers. My day job is real estate marketing. I am an avid reader in addition to writing as well, and just really enjoy the mystery genre.
Good enough. Well, I don't know how many of our viewers today know you two, but I'm going to read the back of your books here, and then give them an idea what these particular books are about, and then we can talk about them all throughout the process. I know I sent you guys some list of questions, but I changed it 4 or 5 times. You guys know what you're talking about. as far as how to sell your book to the clientele. So this is the book I have, Eventide, the third in the series, by Mae Clair, of a Hodes Hill series. The darkness is coming. The old house near Hodes Hill, Pennsylvania, is a place for Madison and Hewitt to start over, to put the trauma of her husband's murder and her subsequent breakdown behind her. She isn't bothered by a burial plot in the property or the mysterious sealed cistern in the basement. Not at first. Even the presence of cold spots and strange odors could be fabrications of her still troubled mind. But how to explain her slashed tires or the ominous messages that grow ever more threatening? Convinced the answer lies in the past, Madison delves into the history of the home's original owners, only to discover the origin of powerful evil, the entity that may be connected to the series of gruesome attacks that have left police baffled. No matter where she turns, past or present, terror lingers just a step away, spurred on by a twisted obsession that can only be satisfied through death. So there's a cheery book about a very troubled young lady. Let's we'll just start with you. Okay, and I ask some questions. Well, here, let me read JT's too here, and then we can go back and forth. Blood on the Bayou. Miranda Marquette, self-made millionaire living in Malibu, is summoned by her cousin Sabine to is that how you say it, Sabine? To return home. Sabine.
Sabine. Yeah.
To return home to New Orleans to solve a mystery. Miranda, an ex-cop, jumps in with both feet to help her cousin. But when someone is murdered, will her offer be at the expense of her freedom? In the process, Miranda learns more family secrets than she ever wanted to know, one of which will change her relationship with Sabine forever. Miranda discovers that no matter what you think, when you go below the surface, things are seldom what they seem. So I have some notes written here. So basically, a book is, these are mysteries and thriller type stories. But a book is basically a means by which a character starts from point A and goes to point B. So, and I just want to talk about like the protagonist, and as opposed to the antagonist. Like when you guys write a character, this particular character, Mae, what kind of, how'd you form her? How'd you formulate her? How'd you create her? How'd you go about creating this character? Who do you is there a model you'd use, or do you
Well, she was kind of a surprise. When it comes to writers, you have plotters and pantsers and the in-between plantser, that half plot and half just wing it. And I'm in the plantser category. Madison is actually a very minor character in the previous book of the series called End of Day. However, and I would like to mention that even though Hodes Hill is a series, each novel can be read as a standalone, all three of the complete stories. So her history is explained in Eventide. You don't need to know it, but she kind of just popped up on the page in End of Day. And I had already had a plot semi in advance for book 3 of Hodes Hill. And I decided I liked Madison so much and her backstory that I was going to make her the main character in Eventide. So she kind of carried over. And because she was a surprise character who I hadn't really planned on, I had to grow with her and learn her backstory as I wrote her. And she had a strong enough voice that I was able to do that. So I really did enjoy writing her for that reason, because she did become such a surprise to me.
So Hodes Hill, is that about the other, you say she's the like at the end character of the previous book. Are they all about, they're not about a certain person? Are they about an area, or
They're all the main overall tying theme with Hodes Hill is the setting. So there is book 1, Cusp of Night, book 2, End of Day, and book 3, Eventide. All 3 novels have dual timelines, which makes that's kind of huge today. I mean, I want to say it kind of makes them unique, but it doesn't, because it's trending. But there is a present timeline in each novel, and there is a timeline set in an earlier century. In the case of Eventide, the past timeline is the late 19th century. And then what I do is I tell those two different timeline stories that pull together at the end, and both mysteries come together.
You have one chapter of the past and then the chapter in the present. Is that how you do it? Kind of like
Pretty much so. Yeah.
Correlate together.
Yes, they go back and forth. There's a mystery on each end, but those mysteries are factored together, like they tie together at the end.
Robert, how about Miranda? Is she a main character in the all these?
Yeah, Miranda is the main character of all the novels, of which there are 6, although I'm working on book 12 right now. I think the interesting thing about Miranda is that I write Miranda as in first person, and that was really a challenge to find either a publisher or anyone that could really buy a male author writing a female in first person, because you really had to jump that hurdle to really believe that was believable, because I think a lot of times it was just assumed that as a male author you couldn't really write a woman believably. But
you have to get in touch with your feminine side, right?
I think it's worked.
Is that why you go with JT Kunkel? Because it won't,
Yeah, I did actually use my initials, and initially I was using my own name, but I did use my initials, so it was obvious that it was a male.
What surprised me how many books out there are on the thriller side, and they're written by females. Just wouldn't know it, unless you know it. Okay, let's see. I kind of write books like I had my first book, Mae, was called Fatal Snow, and I kind of like did the one that it was Harry's past, the protagonist, his past of 3 years ago, and tied in with the present, so I kind of did. That's how I did it. I didn't go back in history, but anyway. So, but when I write a book, a character, I usually have just an idea. Like Harry Thursday is an archaeologist. He's comes from a wealthy family, and he's good looking, and that was it. And then everything else, everything I write, all my books I write on the cuff. I just kind of hit it, and it takes a lot longer to edit.
You're definitely a pantser then.
Yeah, right. It's and because I took a James Patterson course one time. He writes everything out, and he organized everything in chapters. He writes a paragraph per chapter, and then they flesh that out. I tried doing that, and I couldn't even conceive of how to do that. So how about your settings? How do you get your settings? Where do you come from, Mae? Where do you what is this a real setting, or is this like a made up or based on a real?
Well, Hodes Hill actually has some kind of, I grew up in Harrisburg when I was much younger, real little, and the river in Hodes Hill is some memory of the Susquehanna, certain things, the islands on the river. Even I mentioned the old Orchard Trust Bridge, which that also was kind of like the Walnut Street Bridge for me. But anyway, most of my settings always fictional. I wrote one series where I used an actual town to do it, but I like rural settings, and that can be farmland. It can be along the seacoast. It can be mountains. I think I've used all of them, but I'm not a city person myself, so I'm drawn to small town settings.
Mm-hmm.
I've also, I like cemeteries. People say, cemeteries are spooky and, sinister and creepy, but there's so much history in them. And I love history, so I use those a lot. And I also like to use old homes, again, because of the history that you can build into a house, and a house can become a character itself, the same with your setting.
Yeah, yeah. My dog. We bought my daughter a house, and it turns out the lady that owned it originally died in there.
Oh, no.
I didn't know that.
Oh, no.
So she's, I hear something. I hear she calls me up, Dad. I hear something in the hallway. Well, it's probably your boyfriend. Anyway, so how about you, Robert?
I always use real settings. Although I've never been to New Orleans, this book took place there, and actually the murder took place about 40 miles south of New Orleans in a place called Venice, Louisiana, and the Venice Marina and the restaurant that operates there, Crawgator, were really the center of the murder, and I learned a lot about that really just by looking it up online. And actually, I've been in contact with them recently, and they're going to sell this book in their retail store because so much of it took place there. So that was pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, I kind of draw from places I've been. I've just been here maybe for a month or whatever, and then I use that as a location. Let's see. So. Yeah. So the other, you answered my one question about the standalone. How about yours? Can you read all yours?
Yeah, my books are absolutely written to be standalone as well. So people do pick them up. Although I think I really do I have built friendships that Miranda has built throughout the series. So I think it actually does read better as a series, but you certainly can pick anyone up individually.
And you have other series, another series, Robert?
I don't at this point, but I do plan on starting another series at some point.
When you wrote your first book, did you plan on it being a series, or did you say, hey, this would be a good series, or was
I want to the one I've written a number of books, so the first one I wrote, no, but the one I want to mention because it is mystery thriller, and I wrote it not intending it to be a series. It's called 1,000 Yesteryears, and it's the first book in the Point Pleasant series. And when I sent it to my publisher, it's actually based on the history and the folklore surrounding the Mothman and the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1967.
Okay.
To this day, the Silver Bridge tragedy remains the worst bridge collapse in US history. And there is so much mythology tied up in all of that when I sent the original book into Kensington, the editor that I had at the time liked it so much, the idea of the Mothman, he said, can you make this into a series? And I was like, sure, why not? I had no idea what I was going to do, but there was so much, as I said, fodder there. You have UFOs, you have Men in Black, you have the curse of Chief Cornstalk, and of course the Mothman. So that grew into a series, and when it was done, Kensington actually came back to me and said, we would like you to do another series. And that's when I did Hode's Hill.
How about you, Robert? Did you start off thinking I'm going to write 7 series on this one, or you just got? Would this be?
I think when I started out the first one, I don't know. Actually, it's interesting because the first book that got published ended up being book 2 of the series. So book 1 actually never got published. That took place in 2015, and book 2 was actually a prequel that took place in 2007. So actually the first book that got published ended up being book number 2. And so this series starts in 2007 and moves forward. So book 1 actually kind of disappeared completely, and is kind of being written into the rest of the books as it goes.
No, I said Stephen King, not Stephen King. Who did the Star Wars thing? He's got like.
Oh yeah, but Stephen King did. I mean, the first book he wrote, I think it was Carrie, and got thrown out, and then all of a sudden came back again because he got popular.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he had so many rejections. Stephen King, he threw his book, his first manuscript in the trash, and his wife pulled it out. So you got to keep going with that. So it's a good thing he did. Yeah, prequels, huh? I was thinking maybe I can do a prequel. That'd be kind of fun. It takes me so long to write a book. So, yeah, how about your what's interesting about your protagonist? Contrast your protagonist and your antagonist, your good guy and the bad guy. I hate this protagonist word. Your good guy and your bad guy, your hero and your bad guy. How do they contrast? How do they stand against each other? Do they complement each other pretty well, or do you have a main bad guy in your stories? Mae, start you.
In the case of Eventide?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would say, well, let's start with the protagonist. Madison Hewitt. She's had a rough past and she's basically rebuilding her life and is thrust into this situation where she has all these strange events happening in the property, you know, where she has just purchased this property to rebuild her life. There's, you know, the burial ground on the property. There's a cistern in the basement. There's cold spots. She sees manifestations. In addition to that, she has a very real stalker because her tires are slashed. The property is vandalized multiple times. So there's a point where she's questioning, again, she's recovering. So she's questioning, you know, her sanity a little bit. But Madison is a very strong, I think, determined character. And I'd like to think, oh my God, if I were in that situation, would I be able to stand up to all that stuff and continue on? But she's determined to remain and get through and get to the bottom of what's going on.
I want to play the devil's advocate. First of all, if you wouldn't be able to see the heels of my feet if I had to live in a house like that, why would she buy a house like that? You know, if she's all these problems, and
well,
why would
because,
she? You know.
Yeah, because number one, she's starting over. So she was in a care facility for a number of years, which we learn about in book 2, End of Day. So she's starting over, she's rebuilding her life. And this property, as often happens with stigmatized properties, comes very cheap. So it's a place that she can get cheaply.
Does it look like, in your head, did it look anything like this? Or
no.
No. Okay.
I have to say, you know, the other 2 covers that Kensington did for the Hodes Hill series are, and all my covers are, I think are good, but the other 2 covers really captured Cusp of Night and End of Day, really captured the setting. But no, that sadly doesn't do justice to the house.
Cusp of Night has got like a little foggy night with a lamp and stuff like that.
Right. Well, that Cusp of Night, yes, is that. And then you asked about the antagonists, you know, and because I'm writing dual timelines, I have more than one. Mm-hmm. So for them, I would like to think, you know, I put a lot of work into making them multi-layered characters, and I hope that that comes through to my readers. They're not cookie cutter villains. And then as I was writing the series, I realized when I looked back on it that all 3 books have an underlying theme when it comes to the villains. And I don't want to say what that is and ruin anything, but it was like, wow, I didn't even realize I was doing that when I was writing it. But this, and I like to think of a unique and an unusual one. So I was happy with that.
Yeah. Is your villain, like, is he likable qualities, or is he, you can't wait to, you know, the reader's going to say.
Complex. Let's just say very complex. Multiple, as I said, multiple layers and the motives for what propels them to do what they do.
Yeah. Okay. Robert, how about you? And your, can't remember my original question. Your good guy. What, you know, tell me about Miranda. What kind of, you know, person is she?
Yeah, she's a strong but likable woman. She has a good sense of humor, and I think that because I write her in first person, I think people enjoy getting into her head, and I think she's very relatable. The antagonist in this book is it's kind of interesting because I think that the antagonist is a little bit hard to pick out, because this is Miranda is actually arrested for this murder. And so she's really spending a lot of time trying to defend herself and figure out who the real murderer is. And so toward the end of the book, she really is pretty sure she knows. And in fact, this murderer ends up confessing in court, and you really think that that's the end. And she's been working with basically the ex-boss of the guy that was eventually murdered, and he actually turns out he had a disease, and it was a pretty sad story. But
You was working with him, or was she dating him?
no, she was just working with him, trying to figure out the whole story.
No, I'm muted.
And then in the end, it turned out that this guy that actually had been trying to help her solve the murder.
Did you sign the paper? Yes, I did, yes.
Oh, you got some.
Somebody's not on mute.
I mean, I think we had some background noise.
There we go.
Well, they're all muted though.
She's on mute now.
Here it is.
So it was kind of a situation where the person that we thought was the antagonist really was not. Somebody else was behind the whole murder in the end.
Okay, all right. So I know when I write thrillers, they always say, yeah, you got to start with a really good punch, a good first liner, you know. But then a lot of the thrillers I read, they're not punchy in the beginning. It's like kind of a lot of just like cases, you know what they're getting into, you know. But it's not like someone gets murdered, or a big chase scene, or a big murder scene in the beginning. You know what I mean? It's like that's, you know, a lot of the people I talk to say when you write a thriller, which is what I write, you got to have that big, you know, action, something to draw people in. How do you feel about that? Is that I mean, like, you know, does that make sense to you, Robert?
Yeah, that's always something I struggle with. Actually, in book 2, the first murder in the book actually literally happens on page 1. So that was a book that really worked. But generally in my series, because I'm really trying to kind of continue the plot from one book to another, it doesn't work out that way. So I really do try to get some punch toward the beginning, but I usually kind of feel like I'm trying to do a little bit of a kind of a summary of what's happened, you know, to this point, so people are sort of caught up when they start, so they can so the rest of it makes sense if they are starting, you know, with book 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of hard to get that punch, I think, in book 4 or 5 when you're right at the beginning, when you're doing a series.
How do you start your books?
Well, in the case of Hotel, those 3 novels, it's interesting because what I did was I started them with probably the climatic event, just a tease of it. So we start, you know, the book opens and you kind of know where one character is going to end up because it's a climatic scene, part of it, that's actually going to occur at the end. So I do kind of drop the readers into that action, and then I go back and start building the book to return to that, and then it picks up from there. That's not always the case. I do think that a strong beginning is essential to hold a reader's interest. I probably, you know, as writers, we always say, oh, the messy middle. You know, we know point A, we kind of know point B, and that middle getting there can be a mess. But for me, I think maybe writing the beginning is harder, and I definitely probably go back and work on that more than any other section of the book, especially the first chapter, just so it captures the reader's interest. Is
it more fun for you to write or to have written? you know that quote that's supposed to be Dorothy Parker's and a million other people.
Uh-huh.
But I don't understand that, because I think everyone who writes loves the writing. Once
Yes.
you've written, you have the book here, but the ones you have written, then they come to sales, and that's the part that drives me crazy.
Yes.
That's why it takes me so long to write a book. I like writing.
Yeah, I absolutely love the writing part.
Yeah. Let's see, what else are we going to talk about here? I just had an idea in my head. Everything you want to talk about your books? Anything you want to say about so far? Like, where do you get your ideas? Where's your ideas? Where are the your very first book, let's say your very first book you ever wrote and published. Well, how'd you come up with that idea? Was there an experience you went through? Whoever wants to start, is there an experience you went through, or something you saw or read a book about?
A lot of my ideas come from my daily life. I think you can really, if you look closely at my books, I think you can see little snippets of what's going on in my life. I actually do when I read them. I can see little parts of what we're going on
You're getting
in
choppy
my
there.
life at the time. I don't know if you pick that up as a reader, but as the writer, I do pick that up.
Someone says something, you're all, oh yeah, I can use that.
Yep, absolutely. I do that all the time.
How about you, Mae? What do you where do you?
Well, I have a passion for folklore, urban legend, odd things, cryptozoology. So almost every book that I've written uses some elements from something that's kind of out there or bizarre. I also have an avid interest in different aspects of history, and I will use those in my novels. I think more than anything, if something interests me, I delve into it to learn more about it, do research, and then I normally end up using that in a novel. In addition, I'm also a very character-driven author and writer. So I do focus on character dynamics. Family dynamics is something I love using in my novels. But most of my ideas just come from, the things that interest me, and I run from there with them. I love research.
Yeah. I do a lot of research too, and I try to put a little bit of fact in what I write. But it doesn't always come out,
One of the things I've found about my books, and it's interesting when I find that my readers say that they knew what the end is going to be. I really tend to doubt that, because I generally do not know how my books are going to end until I get there.
You too, Mae, the same with you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have that general idea that I start with, and, I make notes. But in the writing of the story, and I kind of know I kind of have to get to here, but the ending is always is a surprise. I have a really hard time writing, synopsis for that reason. When Kensington came and said, send us synopsis. It's like, well, I haven't written the book, so I really don't know.
Right.
But
yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, I'm the same way. My ending's always changing too. Yeah, I mean, it's a hero's journey. So, you kind of know where, you're starting off with a spooky, creepy house. You kind of know, where it's going to end, as you're going along, or maybe before you're going along, but hopefully the reader will not know, and they'll keep reading. But then I think that is, the plot is not always what keeps the reader reading. I think a lot of it has to do with the character,
I think so too. Character relationships, I think, are really a backbone, at least for me as a writer and a reader. And as I said, I'm an avid reader. I read constantly, but character relationships are what really build and drive a novel for me.
I just show my ignorance. What's cryptozoology? What?
That is the study of things that are not necessarily proven, but may exist. So think of Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, the Mothman. It's like a pseudoscience.
Uh-huh.
So it's a possibility that they can exist. And then the creatures themselves are called cryptids. So the Mothman, Bigfoot, Loch Ness, they're all cryptids.
Okay.
And I actually tend more towards creatures than supernatural, although I do use those elements. And I just have to mention this because people always find this ironic that even though I write all these strange, bizarre things, and I did go and research the Mothman in Point Pleasant and visited areas where the Mothman was supposed to be seen, you will never catch me at a seance or going through a haunted house or going on a ghost walk. Even though I write that stuff, I won't go there.
Maybe that's makes you such a good writer about it, because it's so, you're freaked out by it. And
Yeah, it's the what if possibilities, sure.
So you don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster?
I would be disappointed if the Loch Ness Monster was ever discovered as being, I prefer the mystery of the what if.
Yeah, anyway, why this picture's always so fuzzy,
I know, they all are.
Like, we have this great technology nowadays, and the UFOs, they show that. Give me a UFO. I want to see the guys looking out the window, So Robert, your character development, how do you handle that? How do you handle that when you're writing your books? Do you like okay, premise for this is like, when you're like, one of the reasons I asked if you were thinking ahead of a series, I think the character, or I'm going to ask you, should you flesh the character out fully in the first book, or is that even possible? Because I know, Mae, you said you really don't, a lot of in this book, you didn't really flesh the character out to begin with, so.
Right.
And I think it takes some time. I think that, especially in a series, not only the main character, but the supporting cast. Miranda has developed a lot of friendships over the series, and a lot of those were just passing characters in books, maybe one or two, and now they've developed very deep relationships in books 3, 4, or 5. So I think take time to develop those.
You ever bring guest characters back into the other book? You do?
I absolutely do that. I've had characters that might have been in just book 2 and then came back in book 5. Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
May you do that, or your books more?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And in fact, even though each book focuses on a different main character or main characters, there's normally, 1 or 2, the previous characters are there as well in smaller roles. So they get reduced roles as the books go on. That's true of both my series.
Hey, while I think of, why don't you tell us your website? I know it's on the thing and all, but just tell us your website real quick. How do what's your website?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's Mae Clair, and it's MaeClair.com. There are multiple ways to spell Mae and Claire. So yeah, MaeClair.com.
How about Robert? What's your?
I am JT Kunkel, KUNKEL.com.
I put it down KLE. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's not LE, it's KEL.
That's why I spell check.
KUNKEL.com.
Yeah. So, okay, fill in the blank. If you like reading so-and-so, you'll like reading Mae Clair or Robert or JT Kunkel. So who would you like to, fill in the blank. If you like reading this author, you'll like reading you. You know what I mean? It might make itself clear.
Yes.
You like reading, Hemingway, and you like reading Mae Clair.
For me, I would say Jennifer McMahon. She writes mystery thrillers. She uses dual timelines, and she normally flavors her novels with supernatural elements. She's one of my auto auto-buy authors. I love her work, but I would say that, would be a good comparison.
You.
Yeah, I'd like to say Dean Koontz because he writes with a sense of humor, with a little bit of edge, and I love to read Dean Koontz. So I would.
I read one of his books. It was he's really a good writer, good master of the English language, but it was a disturbing book. I mean, he was like some guy in a motor home, and he kidnapped some girl. He's be his future bride. He takes her home. There's a guy splayed in the back in the closet of the bedroom. The thing. You ever? It was disgusting, but it was. Really,
Yeah, I didn't read that one, but the first one I read, he basically they were a couple was hiking, and the first thing that the guy did was to push her off a tower. It started out very nice, and then he pushed her off a fire tower.
how do you come up with that stuff? I don't know, man. That's disturbing. I wonder what that guy. I wonder what authors are like. Okay, we sitting here, everyone can, I mean, I'm pretty much of an open book myself, but you just kind of wonder what some of these authors are thinking when they do a movie of your life. How would you? That's a good question.
He taught at Shippensburg early.
Yeah, and down here in Mechanicsburg too for summer. He was so how would they're going to do a movie, Robert, about you? What who's going to play you in your character? What actor would play you right now? This is a silly question, but
Playing me?
Who's going to play you in the movie?
I don't have a clue.
I have a clue. When I was in college, we were my college friends. We were what's that movie where they all get together? Their friend died, committed suicide.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Oh, and I was Jeff Goldblum. That was my character.
Wow.
But that's I don't know, Mae, is that a silly question I asked?
I would be stuck to answer that one too.
Okay, that was not one of my questions I had written down.
I would have researched that if you'd given us that answer.
Yeah, right. I had time to think about it. So how long did it take you to get published, Robert?
From the point of starting to write, it took me let me see, about 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally sent out 800 query letters twice to get an agent. So it took me much longer to get an agent than it did to get published. By the time I got an agent, it only took me another year to get published after that.
You'll have to tell me how you did that because I don't have an agent. I got published. How about you, Mae?
I was very, very fortunate that the very first, I heard of an open editor's pitch, and I pitched the editor on Twitter, and she asked for the manuscript, the full manuscript, and I was very fortunate. First pitch, first manuscript, they accepted it.
Cool.
So I know that doesn't often happen, but
I hate you.
Timing was good.
I really hate you for that, by the way. You make me sick. I don't know how many people queried letters I put out, but I was fortunate enough that my publisher was local, and I had put a short story in a book that he published. What do they call this? Books of anthology, So I went, I owned a business, a bagel business. I'm famous for my bagels. My one friend of mine says, Bob, you'll never be famous as an author. You'll always be famous for your bagels. Because I had a bagel restaurant for 20 years.
Wow.
And I wrote this while I was doing that. And I told my publisher, I think I'm gonna quit. He said, don't. I'm making that kind of money, don't quit. Don't worry, I can manage, but I'm not doing this for the money. Although I am probably the best, then why Deb picked me is because I'm probably the best living American author in this, in this day and age. Of course, I wish my sales would prove that, but they don't.
I think we all feel that way.
Yeah, right. You know who I am? Yeah. So yeah. So do you have an agent then, or you don't have an agent? You just do your own.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I went directly to the publisher and fell into that, but actually I am just now in the process of querying. So
Mhm.
I started to query.
You belong
In
to
fact, I
any?
sent my first one today.
Oh, okay, cool. Let's hope that person's watching this or will watch. Put it in his
Yeah,
record.
that was a tough process. As I said,
Yeah.
twice, 800 times.
So you never met them, Robert? You know, you're when you queried when you were accepted as when you had an agent say, "Hey, I'd like to take a look at you." Though of course they wanted to meet you first before
No,
they.
I have never met my agent.
Oh.
Her name is Donna Pudick. She lives in Florida at Park East Literary.
Okay, cool.
Done everything by email.
You belong to any organizations, any writers groups?
As of yet, I'd like to. I know that Mae does.
How about Mae?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Mystery Writers of America and
Mhm.
also the International Thriller Writers.
Okay, me too. Well, not the mystery writers, but the international thriller writers. You ever go to one of their meetings, their conferences?
I have not. I would like to get to one of them someday. Of course, the pandemic kind of,
Yeah.
since then, I know they're starting up again, but I have not been to one, but I would like to get to one.
I went there one once. It was pretty interesting. I had I had met what's his name? I was having lunch. I met one of the authors. He said, stop by the bar afterwards, and I was a little intimidated. I saw him talking to Jason Sanford or John Sanford, all these big authors, they're movie stars, almost these guys. They all have movies, and I didn't have a movie, so I didn't feel like stopping over there and saying anything. But I was a little intimidated. I don't know why I was. But
I probably would be too.
yeah. So do you, how do you sell your books? Do you go to events? Do you online? How do you go about selling your?
Well, I do a combination of both. So I do a lot of, I concentrate on online sales. And then I also will go to book events locally. And I also market myself locally. I've also been invited to do a number of different speeches, different talks to different groups, a historical society, women's clubs. I have a big folklore presentation I do. So I sell there as well. So mine's kind of a combination of both online and in person.
How do you online? How do you focus mostly online?
For online, I do blog tours. I have my own blog, which I market heavily. I'm a founding member of a group writers blog called Story Empire. We don't really market on there, but we have a decent following and people know us from there. So that also factors into it.
Sure.
I'm always looking for ways to do that online, different avenues to use. I also have been featured locally in our local paper, and I'm going to be the author of the month at my local library in December. So it's just constant networking.
What library is your local library?
I'm sorry?
What library is that?
Hershey Public Library.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You look familiar. I mean, I swear I've seen you before, and I just saw your picture like for the first time today, it's something.
I'm losing my sound for some reason.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Now it's back.
You look familiar. I just say you look familiar, and I think I've seen you before, and it's some event. I'm not really sure where.
Probably, if you do local dance, I'm sure that you've probably attended some that I have as well.
Mm-hmm.
Since the pandemic, I haven't done any. I'd like to get back into it again.
I was just down at Hershey a couple weeks ago for the Hershey chocolate book thing. It's a new thing. The two
Uh-huh.
librarians there did this thing. It was outside. It was pretty. It was
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
Robert, do you how do you sell your wares?
Yeah, I'm actually working on adding some events. I'm relatively new in being published since really COVID hit right after my first book was published, so I haven't really done too much in person. I do, since I'm still employed, I'm sending out a lot of emails to people that I know and work with, and I sell a few books that way. I actually have a sign in my front yard. Get a lot of neighborhood traffic. So I think I sell some books that way. So, however possible, I talk to people as I run into.
And you're a singer-songwriter?
Singer-songwriter as well.
And you can say, hey, read my new book. Don't forget to tip the waitress on the way out. Oh, you mentioned yourself. You do a lot of bars and things like that.
I haven't been doing that stuff for a while, though. I always enjoy it.
You cut your own records, your own albums, or do you go on? What's that online thing where all the musicians put their stuff?
YouTube.
No, not YouTube. There's like I should know it. My brother was a musician, and my nephew is a musician, and they go on this something or other. It's like
Spotify.
What's that? What's it called? Spotify? No, it's some kind of, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, I thought you might know.
Spotify. No.
No, I don't.
No.
I've pretty much been concentrating on my writing.
Yeah, but it's a dirty deed that has to be done, getting out there and selling these things and doing stuff like this. Hopefully, people will see it and buy a book. Let's see. I'm at the end of my thing here. So, does anybody have any questions, or how do we find out if they?
If they have questions, they'll put it in the chat.
Okay, ask who play.
All the stuff to-
Oh.
if they've got questions.
Ask who would play their book's main character in a movie. Someone wrote, "Yes, Bob, your bagels were the best and very missed." Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm an author. I'm not a bagel maker. So this person wants to know, Wendy wants to know who would play their main character, I guess, in a film. Not you, but if you were to make a film out of Eventide. That's probably what I should have asked earlier.
Yeah. Wow. That is caught me off guard. I'm trying to think of current actors and actresses. I guess they're all actors now. And I'm having a hard time off the top of my head, but I would want somebody that's relatable. Somebody that exemplifies a strong person, but also fragility and vulnerability. Somebody with curiosity. Gee, I'm really sorry. I can't think
I
of.
know
anyone
it's hard,
off the top of my head.
and I'm trying to think of the guy I would like to do my Harry Thursday, and he was in Lincoln Lawyer.
Oh, yeah. I
Um,
can't think of his name either.
Matthew McConaughey.
That's it.
Before he gets too old, I mean, these guys like so my books or my series are start in the 70s, and Harry's 30 years old.
Actually, Matthew McConaughey would be good as your main character.
Yeah, I like him.
Look at that.
And Marissa Tomei would be my good prostitute in the first book. I had a hooker in there, and she would have been fantastic as that character. Yeah, she, remember like what she played what's it called in My Cousin Vinny. You ever see that
I
movie?
love that movie.
She was fantastic. Oh my.
So who would play Bob's main character?
Oh, who would play your main character, Bob?
I'd say Scarlett Johansson or Reese Witherspoon.
Now, check that out. Reese Witherspoon's, you can contact her through IMBD or whatever it's called, that website. She has her own production company, or she did, I wrote out there one time and she said, she actually took the time to write back. I said, buzz off, pal, get an agent, you know? Was basically what she said, but she was nice about it, you know? She has a nice buzz off. So have your agent check her out.
We could put a movie together.
I don't know. Do you have any kind of work, anything in the works like that? You know, do you know anybody that might, you know, lead to a movie contract or?
Well, I actually, I contacted Meg Griffin at Sirius XM. I don't know if you ever listened to Sirius XM.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
She's a DJ there, and she actually did a show called Serious Disorder. I don't know if you ever listened to her.
No.
My next book coming out is called Disorder in the Desert, and I was trying to get her to mention that on the air. We actually exchanged a few emails. So when that book comes out, I'm going to talk to her again about maybe doing promotion for that.
How about you? Okay. Anybody in the industry that might you know, eventually, I don't know.
Yeah, no, nobody in the industry that the editor that I was working with at Kensington has gone someplace else. And I often think about, you know, I would love to see Point Pleasant made into a TV series
Oh yeah.
or a graphic novel. So I often think about pursuing those.
You would like to make it into a graphic novel, you say?
Yeah, I don't have any connections in the art field, but I could see the Mothman legend and all of that. That's the Point Pleasant series, transitioning very well to a graphic novel. And also a television series.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Think big, right?
What's that?
I said, think big, right?
Yeah, sure. We have time for one more question. We got to wrap it up soon. I'm mimicking Deb.
Is there
So
any questions?
I wish I had a question. What's
Does
that?
anybody else have any questions?
Anybody? Yeah. Does anybody, any of the listeners have a question they want to, you know, type in there?
And if not, just.
If not, no. Okay. Well, I think we did all right here, getting the word out. It was nice meeting you guys.
You too.
And hope to see you around somewhere, you know, sometime soon. I'd like to start getting more into the conference market to, you know, doing some things.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll see you out there. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, everybody.
Absolutely.
Hope we had a
Very
good
nice meeting
time.
you guys.
Thank you so much, authors. We really appreciate
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
And thank you for those that have tuned in. Again, you can visit our
Yes, thank you.
YouTube channel if you want to see it again. And thank you so much and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.